I can really multitask a lot of things. I move fast and I want results fast. When you start doing interviews, you have to kind of think on your feet or pivot fast. I think that, and I think also being a chameleon is another great thing that journalism teaches you as a superpower, just being able to connect, right? Because that, I think, is what makes a successful journalist is, can you connect with a guy that has a 7-Eleven? Can you connect with Warren Buffett? Can you connect with a politician? So can you connect with a wide variety of people, right? Can you adapt? I love people. I love meeting people, but just remember, like, no one's better than you and you're not better than anyone, right? Like, we're just all on this world. Some of us have a little bit more luck. Some of us are very unfortunate, and we just have to all, like, I don't know, feel for one another,
Today I'm sitting with Daniela Cambone, who is the editor-at-large for Stansberry Research and serves as the firm's lead media anchor. Prior to Stansberry, Daniela helped launch Kitco News, a division of Kitco.com. The brand became the preeminent news source for precious metals and commodities coverage. Daniela's news division helped drive more than 1 million daily unique visitors on Kitco.com, making it the largest gold site on the internet. Daniela covered global markets, economic news, and commodities. She's been featured on Jim Cramer's TheStreet.com, Forbes, Yahoo Finance, and MSNBC, as well as having been interviewing other high-profile public figures such as Ron Paul, Newt Gingrich, Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, George Foreman, Steve Forbes, and many more. I enjoyed my conversation today with Daniela. She's insightful, smart, transparent, and passionate. We've talked about her background, how she propelled herself to the forefront of online media, and where she sees gold and Bitcoin going, and a lot more. I learned a lot today with Daniela, and I think you will too. So with that said, let's dive in with Daniela Cambone. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and comment below. And to find future episodes in your feed and push notifications, make sure you subscribe. And if you click the little bell, you'll get every new episode as it's released. Thanks again for watching. Daniela, welcome to the show.
Nice to be with you, Jay. Thank you so much for having me.
I am super excited to have you on the show. I want to tell your origin story. We're going to dive in a little bit about gold and Bitcoin, and we're going to go over, everything about you and your views on the markets and your background. So let's dive in. The first question I ask everybody that comes on the show is, who's in your top 5? Remember, T-Mobile had the top 5 on your phone. I want to know the 5 people that you're communicating with the most these days outside of your immediate family.
That I'm communicating the most?
Or that you have in your life that you're listening to. It could be directly or indirectly.
Right. So now,
essentially, you know what I'm looking for? Who's influencing Daniela?
That is an excellent question. I feel like it's an Oscar speech where I'm afraid to leave someone out. But influencers in my life, outside of my family, I would say Frank Giustra is definitely part of that list. And those who, everyone's familiar with Frank Giustra, probably one of the greatest gurus in the gold space.
I think in the Bitcoin world, we've all seen the debate.
Right. There you go. So I don't have to bore everyone with that. I would say Frank Holmes, I speak to regularly of U.S. Global investors. He's been a great mentor to me and life coach, really. I mean, he's just one of the most optimistic people you can meet. I would say Robert Kiyosaki. Also, obviously just such an inspiring story. Another 2 people. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. This is so tough, Jay. This is so tough. I know I'm missing out on someone. I speak to Mark Yaxley of Strategic Wealth Preservation a lot, just because, full disclosure, I do invest in gold and silver. And so whenever I have questions about physical product, he's my go-to. And I have one more spot, right?
Yeah. Putting you on a spot today.
I know there's someone in the crypto world.
How close are you with Michael Saylor? Or is it just a few interviews and?
I mean, no. I mean, I want to say I have a good relationship with Michael, but is he my phone a friend? No, but I definitely have a very good relationship, and I know he enjoys coming on the show.
Listen, I don't think anybody speaks about Bitcoin more articulate and understandable than Michael Saylor, and you've had a lot of interviews.
You know what? You know who I like speaking to a lot are Max Kaiser and Stacy. So I'm going to add those to my list.
Yeah, clearly they're the OGs. There's no doubt.
Yeah, Rick Rule also I speak to regularly. These are all great mentors and inspirations to me. So outside of the interviews, they're folks that I feel very comfortable, direct messaging or talking to.
Sure, a text message. Yeah,
So yeah, that's my list. I went over 5 at the end. See,
yeah. You got them all. I'm gonna go back to your early years. I want to go back to your childhood, like your socioeconomic background. I want to know what your parents did for a living, where you grew up, maybe if you had siblings. Tell us a little bit about yourself as a kid. Who was Danielle as a kid?
I know that's one of the greatest mysteries is my background, and I've heard everything. So under the sun in regards to that. So I grew up in Montreal, Canada. My background is Italian. And I spent most of my summers, I want to say every summer from basically May to September in my hometown of Italy. So I really feel, that I'm Canadian, I'm Italian, and now I live in the US. So I really think I'm a global citizen of the world. But no, grew up in a very much an Italian household. We spoke Italian at home. I went to school in French, obviously speaking English as well. My parents are first generation Italian. They immigrated to Canada, but it wasn't that story where they had to leave Italy because of socioeconomic conditions. My father actually had a very successful business in Italy, but he left Italy from my mom, basically. So he was like 25 years old or whatever. And I bring him up because I wasn't allowed to bring him up in my top 5, but he's definitely one of the most influential people, if not the most influential person in my life, because he is an entrepreneur, hard worker, came to Canada not speaking English or French, but refused to work for anyone. I wanted to give the best life to his kids. So he was like, I had my own business in Italy and I refused to work for anyone.
I
So
love it.
he started his, a small business, but it was able to put us all through private school, give us a very comfortable living. I mean, we weren't millionaires at all, but he worked so hard and he's still working. He's still working.
Is he really? What is he? What did he do?
So he actually owns, I don't like bringing it up because people are like, are you in the mob? No. But he actually does, he sells meat, wholesale meat, basically to restaurants, to small grocery stores. So, as a kid, I really respected small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Still to this day,
Yeah.
if I can, that's who I want to support. And that's why the pandemic hit me so hard, because I was like, had this happened in the 80s or 90s, my dad's business would have been over.
Yeah. For
Now
sure.
he's fine. He's like, he's practically retired. It doesn't matter. But he would have shut down.
Yeah.
We would have had no income. My mom wasn't working. She was raising the kids. So it's a very traditional, family upbringing. We still have Sunday lunches. I mean, I don't live in Montreal anymore, but it's a very traditional upbringing. But I think it really gave me that solid foundation and drive to work hard. My dad always just taught me to keep my head up high and that no one's better than you. I think that really equipped me when I came to Wall Street. And, you get a lot of egos here, but I just kept hearing what he would tell me. At the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same very morbid space.
Yeah, we're all going 6 feet.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's the ultimate hustler. He's awesome. He's so, and so is my mom. They're just very like warm, inviting, sociable people. And
Yeah.
I love them so much.
That's awesome.
I also have a sister and a brother, both very successful in their own ways, and just we're very tight family unit. So I miss them, and I know they watch all the interviews because at least they feel a little closer to me.
It's funny doing this, by the way, right? Like the interviews, because like
it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's very weird because then your friends like hit you up and they're like, I like the interview. And I'm like, when it's strangers, it's cool. But when it's people you feel awkward. I'm like, that's weird. So listen, my next question is, I noticed there's a strong correlation between high achievers and having a little bit of early life trauma. Not everybody has it though. So it's sometimes there's anomaly cases that's not the case. Did you have any early life trauma of any sort that you can recall that maybe shaped the way who you are today?
No, luckily I didn't have any trauma. I think the drive just really came from what my parents instilled, that you just got to work hard and not make excuses.
Yeah.
And they didn't allow me to make excuses. Like the only time I could miss school or when I had my part-time job is like if I had a fever of like 40 or something.
Right.
I don't know in Fahrenheit, but like there were just no excuses. And you couldn't wake up late. You could not wake up like
Yeah, that was my house too.
that's my trauma, Jay, as a kid. I wanted to sleep in till 11, 12, 1, but my parents saw that as being lazy. Like, you gotta get up at 7. I had to have my room clean. Like, so there was a lot of like discipline.
Yeah.
But I think it prepared me. You know,
Yeah. Toughened you up.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up next door to my grandparents, and they're from like the greatest generation, right? They went through the Great Depression. So I think, immigrant kind of mindset, and you grew up, I think, with parents that have an immigrant mindset. I've noticed a lot of people that come into that kind of culture growing up that way, they're better off in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, look, my parents were born right after World War II, you know, so they knew what it meant. Like, my dad would tell me, like, we'd be so grateful to have a pencil to go to school with, and here
Yeah.
you are, you want like this whole 12 set of pencils. So he just, even though he spoiled us, but he wanted us to just appreciate everything we had and give back. He is a big believer in like paying it forward, helping those who are not as fortunate. So just really growing up with a good value system, I think, and that's what I really hope to give my kids too. I know it's tougher in today's society, but I really hope to pass that on to them.
Did your father talk about inflation without using the words inflation? And what I mean by that, my grandfather did this all the time. He would be like, how much is the price of those new Air Jordans you got? This is ridiculous. I got shoes for $10. Did your dad do that?
Absolutely. Without saying, he still does that, without, I think we were just having that conversation the other day, and we noticed how it's so funny you say that, because we're on a group chat, like the family, and someone had dug up an old flyer from the mall we lived across, Cavendish Mall, if anyone from Montreal is watching. And there were prices from like 1984. So like a TV was $300, and we were just saying, look how stuff cheap was. But one thing was clothing. There was like a skirt, it said like, get this skirt for $119, and I was like, wow, clothing prices in the 80s, were obviously, we didn't have like made in China and all that, or this fast fashion. But yeah, clothing is actually not that expensive. So we were having inflationary talk. But yeah, he's always complaining about how things are. You can't get out of the pharmacy without spending $100 or what.
Yeah. My grandfather did this all the time, kind of the immigrant mindset. And
it's like, yes, we know, Dad.
yeah, exactly. It's like one ear and out the other because they say too much. Okay, let me ask you this. Did you or do you seek approval or affirmation from others? And what I mean by that is your husband, your parents, your kids, anything like that.
In terms of like the job I'm doing?
Just in life in general, like whatever it is you're focused on, are you trying to do the best to make them proud?
Yeah, definitely. I want to make them proud. And I want to be the best version of myself. So like, my husband's my greatest sounding board, my greatest supporter. I always say I'm so grateful to the gold industry, because I met him through the gold industry.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up having kids together. But he's kind of like the voice you don't see in all the interviews. But I'm always asking him, Matt, do you think we should talk about this? And like I said, he's obviously in finance, and he's always trying to push me more. Like, you should do this, and I'll be like, I don't know. He's like, try it. So absolutely, I think it's really important to have these people that will really keep you in check, right? Because like, I have a very tight friend list. So those folks, plus my husband, plus my family, are the people that are really going to tell me like, that was bad, or that was great, or you did a really good job here. It's like kind of the only people I really trust for that feedback, but I definitely check in with them.
So the people I bring on the show, I call them docents. Docents are people that inspire, guide, and influence others. They could be public figures. They could also be people in your life. I think you've named a lot of docents right now, including your own husband, right? The people around you. And the thing that I found as a common theme is it's the people around you that rise you up. They bring you up, right? If you're willing to allow that, which you seem to be. So I guess the question I have for you is like, if you, in your mind, like when you were growing up, who did you look up to that wasn't in your family? Did you look up to anybody that was like a public figure and say like, yeah, I want to be, because for me, there were tech people. I won the tech industry. So I looked up to like, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and then as I got older in the industry I was in, there was a guy named Jonathan Abrams. He started Friendster. And I remember there's an Inc. magazine. He's on the cover, and I bring it in to live with my parents in my early 20s. And I show it to my stepdad. I'm like, that's going to be me someday, Dad.
I mean, I'm going to bring up someone, but the European audience might only know this. And I ended up meeting her, and she was really a pivotal reason why I ended up going into journalism, apart from reading Walter Cronkite's biography. Because I'd like to mention, I spent a big portion of my time in Rome. I did my master's in Rome. I lived there for 5 years. But being in an Italian household, we'd watch a news station called La Rai, and the lead journalist there was Lily Gruber, who speaks 5 languages, who's just a beautiful soul inside and out. And I was just like wowed by her delivery, wowed by her journalism. So I grew up watching her, and my mom would say, like, I didn't watch cartoons like as a 3 or 4 year old or 5 year old. I'd watch the news and I would recount it at the dinner table. Apart from the Flintstones, I liked watching. And I actually ended up meeting her. She was doing a book signing in Rome, and I met her, and I have a photo with her in my childhood room in Montreal. But I actually had a chance to tell her, like, you were so inspirational to me for going into journalism. Because at that time there weren't a lot of strong women journalists on air. It was dominated by men, and
Yeah.
she was just a force. Like, I invite any of you guys. I mean, she does telecasts in Italian, English, German. And she's retired now, but she was just extremely inspirational to me. So, and there were other great people. There was Wendy Mesley in Canada. Again, I grew up with really Canadian and Italian news, but yeah, definitely inspirational. Uh, Taking a jab at journalism.
Daniela, what is your superpower?
Multitasking, moving fast, juggling a lot of things at the same time. I move fast. My husband's always like, "You move fast." I move fast, and I want results fast. So, yeah, I think I can really multitask a lot of things. I know most women are good multitaskers, but um,
Particularly moms.
yeah, I'm just good at pivoting, hedging. I mean, I'm sure that when you start doing interviews, you have to kind of think on your feet or pivot fast. So I think that, and I think also being a chameleon is another great thing that journalism teaches you as a superpower. Just being able to, you know, connect, right? Because that, I think, is what makes a successful journalist. Is, can you connect with a guy that has a 7-Eleven? Can you connect with Warren Buffett? Can you connect with a politician? So can you connect with a wide variety of people, right? Can you adapt? So I just named more than one superpower. Sorry, but
It's all good. I agree with you on that though, like the adaptability and being
yeah,
a chameleon. Yeah,
I love people. I love meeting people, but just remember, like, no one's better than you, and you're not better than anyone, right? Like,
that's right.
we're just all on this world. Some of us have a little bit more luck. Some of us are very unfortunate, and we just have to all, like, I don't know, feel for one another.
I agree. No, I totally agree with you. I will ask you about luck pretty soon. It's another question I have. It's so funny you brought it up, but I want to ask you, if you're Superman and you have a superpower, what is your kryptonite?
I get scared of a lot of things. I'm definitely a scaredy cat. That's where my husband's good because he'll push me to try new things. I'm definitely a creature of comfort. I don't love change, even though I've changed country, like 3 times. But I force myself to take on change. It's scary. But so I definitely can be a scaredy cat, like of ghosts and turbulence on airplanes and a bunch of stuff. But I try not to let fear get the best of me. But I would just say, yeah.
So another thing I've noticed about people that come on the show that are high achievers is this obsessive compulsive behavior, right? You have to be obsessed, in my opinion, if you want to be the absolute best at your craft, right? So I'm assuming you're obsessive compulsive, like you've been kind of alluding to. But with that, and I can see that, Matt, your husband's over here, so you need someone who's a strong supporter in your camp. And if you don't have that, it can ruin relationships. But have you had your obsessive compulsive behaviors impact in any way personal relationships in your life? And can you just kind of just walk us through maybe a couple examples?
He's obsessive compulsive also, so it just works out
That's
perfect.
me and my wife. It's the best.
And I think it really helps. I know some people don't like being married to people in the same field. I personally love it because I don't have to start explaining, like, hey, I had an interview with Rule today. Like, he'll automatically understand who that is and what that
Why it's
means
important. Yep.
and why it's important. But I think about content all the time, Jay. Like, I shower, I think about content. I don't sleep. I think about content. I wake up at 2 in the morning. I'm like, I should ask this or do something. I'm always thinking about work.
Yeah.
And I definitely, when you say what sets achievers apart, I'll notice that those who just want to work 9 to 5, it's 5 p.m. and the pencil drops. you're just never going to, you're just, well, but maybe you're happy. Maybe you're just happy.
They're probably happier than us. That's right.
I think of that a lot. I told my husband that. I said, they probably are better off, because you're content, right? People like us, Jay, like, you're never happy.
I'm happy, just not satisfied.
Right. Correction. Happy, but not satisfied. Like, you just always want more and more. But it's not driven by money it's just like a personal success that you just want to set that bar, and if there's competition, that just fuels my fire even more. And I love it. I love competition. That really will get me going. Yeah. And us working in digital media, it's a numbers game, right? We want the highest traffic, we want the numbers, and I don't know, you just get become obsessed with it, but you want to just create the best content for the people out there. So I'm obsessed with thinking about content. I love what I do. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time, I guess, but I don't think it's impacted my person. I mean, like I said, my husband is the same, so it works. And when it's my time with my kids, though, like when
shut it off,
I'm off. Like, that's it. Like, someone wrote to me, "Can I call you now?" No, like, now it's my time with the kids, and that's it.
Yeah, I do a bad job at this. I'm working on it. American Hoddle, American Hoddle, right?
Yeah.
He's really good at this. Like, you will not be able to catch him to talk to him for like a 2 to 3 hour window every day that he just spends with his kids, no matter what. It's like, he's like, because I was like, "Oh, you come on the podcast." He goes, "What time?" I go, "No, can't kids." I'm like one day, he goes, "Not doing it." He just is so strict. And I'm like, I give you so much credit.
I mean, unless there's like a major urgency at work or something, like, nothing will come ahead of them, and when I see them smile, it like just makes me forget about everything else. I could have had the worst day. You feel the same thing, Jay, but you just, like, you're their world to them.
I know.
Like, the way they look at me, it's like, I don't know what they're looking at. And I'm just like, it just melts my heart,
I always say that success is determined by opportunities presented, but making the right choices. And then you got to sprinkle a little bit of luck in there. So I love the fact that you said that. How do you feel luck has played a role in your successes?
Big time. I think, and I've always said this, like, I think luck, and when you're starting your career, who you're reporting to. Okay. Because, and this is where social media is a game changer, and I can talk about that in a bit. But when I was starting my career, when I had come back, and I don't want to name names of companies, but I had a really bad person I was reporting to at this one company that shall remain nameless. And it's like, I'm the same person. I think he was just really, like, threatened, or just, knew I was coming in and I wanted to make a change. And he was just trying to, like,
hold on,
keep me down. But here I am, same person, right? I had the drive back then like I have it now, but I wasn't allowed to shine, right? Because you get a jerk or jerkette, right, suppressing you. And then, by luck of whatever, he was out, right? So that's why I say luck does play a role.
Yeah.
And when you came in and was like, "Wait, you have a lot of talent," because I was going to quit. I was quitting. I had actually said, "I'm out." He was like, hold on. And he gave me a shot to run with something. And it's so hard not to say the company name, but yeah, being an extremely successful story. So I was grateful to him for seeing that, but he gave me the room. And where I'm at now, it's like they give me the room to grow, to breathe. Yeah. So it depends on the environment you're in. And that has to do with luck. People end up at toxic work environments, and sometimes you can't get out because you have to put food on the table for your family. And you're like, oh, yeah. So there is an element of luck, like, yeah, you could reverse that, you could leave, but some people are scared to leave or can in that moment. So I think luck and who you report to, I think being at the right time at the right place. Look, when I got into digital media, it was at the start. No one was really on YouTube still. Cable was still big. Now, who watches cable anymore, right? So timing, right? Who the network.
You probably get more downloads than CNBC does on, like, the Squawk Box for their TV show, right? I think they only get a few 100,000 listeners during the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, obviously, and I always say, like, I'm not here to compete. I can't go up against Bloomberg or CNBC because they're live television.
I don't know. Look at Joe Rogan. You might be able to.
Joe Rogan, yeah, you're right. But I'm saying in terms of, like, I'm not going to cover, like, the Fed testimony as it's happening. What I can do is do a different take that you're not going to hear on trashy media, right? So when people are like, you're an alternative financial news channel, I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. If that's what you guys want to label me, fantastic. I don't know if it's alternative because I see like a lot of people want this.
I think they're the alternative now.
Yeah, I think cable's alternative. I think we're like,
Don't you find it kind of weird that you go on cable TV and all of a sudden that creates authority and credibility for an individual because they were on TV? But like, what are you kidding me?
That just drives me bonkers. Okay. Even when it's booking guests, it's like, oh, if you have the Bloomberg name or the CNBC, but that's where social media is great. And that's what I wanted to say is that, when I was starting in journalism, I didn't have those platforms. But today, if you have talent, you don't have to depend on another company or having a good boss to make it. You can just do it yourself on Instagram or do your own YouTube channel. You could be whoever you want to be, right? And
Yep.
I think that's what's incredible about social media. But yeah, I think it's nonsense that we're still attached to these labels like, oh, he worked at Bloomberg or he worked, like, who the hell cares? Like, full disclosure, I was offered a job at Bloomberg. I turned down the job because I just didn't want to do this. I wanted to do all this.
Yeah.
So it's just a label and depends how you see it. And I'm happy I didn't go down that traditional path. I think sky's the limit with things like we do, But yeah, it pisses me off that people, you get the street credit if you go on Bloomberg or whatever,
I think you might have been telling me what my next question is earlier, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Tell us about the Kitco experience. Like, how did you become the person? It's like you jumped ahead on me, I think. But I just wanted to know, like, how you became the person who basically, I mean, you made their brand the brand, right? Like, so how did that happen? And then why did you leave? Tell me why you left.
So first and foremost, yeah, that's where I say it's weird and timing of luck and life and whatever. I was living in Rome. I had moved back to Montreal. I got a call from Kitco and I was like, what is Kitco? And I went on the site and I'm like, this doesn't really look good and weird. I knew nothing about gold. I remember I went into that interview and they're like, what do you know about gold? And I was like, I don't even know how it's priced. Like, and I was covering financial journalism, but I was doing more banking, insurance. And they're like, look, we'd love to start a media department. And I was like, well, who's in the department? And they're like, you'd be it. And I was like, okay. So talk about a startup, but it just taught me so much. I mean, I was slated to cover PDAC, which is the Metals and Mining Conference, but we didn't have a mic flag. We didn't have a video server. We didn't have a camera.
Wow.
We didn't have a mic. And I'm looking at them like, wait, what? So all this has to happen.
Did you do this out of their office or did you do this from your location?
From Montreal. I was living in Montreal.
And you went to the office, I guess.
Yeah, this is like pre-pandemic. This is like 2008 when I started. So gold, that was an interesting time in gold. It was below 1,000 and people were like, gold's never going to be over 1,000. Like it was 800.
I remember that actually.
Crisis and ECB and it just exploded. But it was a steep learning curve. And I had to hustle because people were like, who the hell's Kitco News? Like, I remember that meeting. We're like, what are we going to call this? KN News? Should we call it? We didn't even have a name. I remember someone was just like, well, just call it Kitco News. And we're like, okay. It was a slow build. Like people were like, who? We don't want to talk to you. And then it was only like when you talk about street credibility, when I started booking like Ron Paul, hustling, like being like basically groveling, like, please come on the show.
It's so hard to get them initially.
Yeah. And then you get one and then it's like, oh, okay, you had Ron Paul on. So maybe it's worthy of me talking to you. Opens the door. That's how it works. It's just how it works.
Yep.
And eventually down the line, I even got Mark Cuban. But it was a 10-year build.
Yeah.
And I built it, with the help of the team to become the largest precious metals news desk in the entire world.
Amazing.
Our traffic was insane. And people were like, you're nuts. You're living at the top of the game, and I was pregnant at the time. So talk about a scary change. But my husband was very encouraging of the move. So nothing was wrong. I was extremely happy. There's no drama. I loved being the editor-in-chief and the face of Kitco. I had an incredible experience. I was loved by Kitco. But full disclosure, Stansberry made me an offer I just couldn't refuse.
Sure.
that's how it went down. And I was like, you know what?
How did it present themselves? They saw you, they came to you with an offer. Obviously, you go back to Kitco. Kitco says, we can't match that. And then you leave and you kill Kitco by leaving, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
It wasn't so much that. So here I am. I'm like 12 years in now at Kitco. I've reached the top. I'm, editor in chief there. I'm leading this department, journalist in the States and Canada. It was great. I was like the queen of the castle, right? I did this Gould promo for Stansberry because I've been good friends with John Duty for a long time. He's like, hey, I got to shoot this thing. I'd love to do it with you. We've known each other a long time. I was like, I love John. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I love his newsletter. It's one of the ones I respect the most. And they loved the results, or they saw that the audience was really captivated, I guess, and we're like, hey, we don't know what we want to do with you, but we know you're a talent. And can you do what you did for Kitco for us? Because we want to start a media department. I'm thinking like, oh my God, could I really start from scratch? Like here I am
Here you go.
to twins. My life is about to be turned up. I was like, I don't think I could do this. Then my husband was like, you got to do this now.
Do you mind me asking, how old were you when you started the Kitco, and how old were you when you went to the Stansberry?
I'm not going to take that, Jay. Then you're going to be, no way I'm answering that. Let's just say I was in my very early 20s.
There you go. I'm just curious, like where you were in life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was a baby.
I know. I'm not supposed to ask a woman her age.
Look at those videos. I still had like baby fat when I was doing those videos, like horrible videos from like the makeshift office. It's just,
I'll look back and say, why didn't I shave? But it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hilarious. And I was doing these like walking and talking shots, walking down the escalator. It was hilarious. Anyways, so I took a huge leap of faith. I was just like, everyone like outside was like, don't do it. How could you leave? Like, you're so comfortable. You're about to give birth. Like, I kept hearing that, but something inside of me said, you can branch out at Gould. And that's what Stansberry was kind of presenting me. Now, that is like my main kind of core, or like Gould, crypto, but I cover a wider range of topics, which I wanted to do. I just didn't want to become like the Jennifer Aniston of the Gould girl or type.
The Gould girl. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm proud to be the Gould girl, whatever they want to call it, queen of the Gould space. Very proud to wear that title. Very proud, and to serve the Gould people. It just was giving me an opportunity to branch out to a much wider audience. I mean, they're huge, especially in the US.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I went down. So even if, I went back to, Kitco, and, they understood. They were like, we get it. It's kind of like I had reached peak, So am I going to be comfortable, or am I going to make myself uncomfortable and try something? And I still felt like, well, I'm still young enough that, you know what, I'm going to do this. And now looking back, I'm so happy I did, because I'm having a blast at Stansberry. I love the new show, love the new platform, love the energy, and we're planning so many big things. So they're fully supportive of all my crazy content ideas I'm going to be pushing out, which is awesome.
You mentioned something that resonates with me. You said you had a feeling, and I made a decision once when I could have sold the company for millions of dollars in cash, but I could have done another one for equity. I did the equity deal. My parents were like, you're crazy, because we came from nothing. You got to take the money. And I was like, I think I'm taking the relationships. The guys that were running the company, the one guy started .tv. He was at Goldman Sachs previously, Stanford, Columbia backgrounds for these two founders. And I'm like, I'm going to be an equal partner with them. And then we got sued by Universal Music. Poof, the whole thing went away.
Wow.
We lost it all. But I built relationships just like I wanted. And I got investors in my company from the next company, like guys like Reid Hoffman and all these amazing people. And it was all predicated on the relationships that I built while I was running the company with these guys, which then it just compounded over. And by the way, I met my now wife, then girlfriend, who worked at that company. And I got 4 kids and a wife out of that deal.
There you go.
So it's a weird feeling. And I feel like there's something that speaks to you. You have to have this instinct, intuition, and a connection with the energy in the world to be able to listen to that. And a lot of people don't. And I see that you had that feeling too. You just can't describe it, right?
Something was just telling me, like, do it. And I just took that. Yeah, I can't explain it. I don't know where it comes from or who's.
But you listen to it, right? A lot of people don't listen to it.
Yeah, you have to listen. You just have to listen. I would say 99% of the times I've listened to my gut, it's been the right call.
Is that like, you think it's innate, or do you think that that's something you develop through life experiences?
Maybe. I think I have a bit of a sixth sense though. Like people are going to think I'm really weird now watching this, but
I don't.
I feel presence. Like when I said I had a fear of ghosts, like I think I'm more sensitive. Like
Sure.
there was like one show I hated doing on when I was doing the Gold tour because I swear that hotel was haunted. So I'd like sleep with the lights on and be filming with like bags for 3 days. Actually, two hotels that were haunted. But so I think I'm very sensitive to energy. I
Yep.
pick up people's energies, and that's what I think also makes me, what pretty in tune interviewers. I can feel people
Yeah.
out. I know if they're getting angry or sad,
And back
and
off or dive in. Yeah.
off. Or so yeah, I think I'm definitely more sensitive to energies out there.
I have a very similar thing. I've had even premonitions. I don't want to get through it in here because people will think I'm weird, but I've had very similar kind of experiences. And I always ask people about that, and I get a mixed review on it. But a lot of the docents come on the show, they have some weird instinctual feelings that they follow.
And my mom had that. Like she definitely had a sixth sense. Like
Yep.
no, I don't know if it was just like old Italian superstitions, but she'd warn me about things that would come out, or she'd have dreams about things. So maybe I got that from her. But I usually have a good intuition about people and events and things I should be doing.
I got to ask you, right? You've built a brand. You are the brand, right? You work at Stansberry and you built up the brand for Kitco, but like ultimately it's Daniela, right? We all know that. Is it in your future views that you will build your own online media brand? Because I think there's going to be like Cambone Media someday or something, or I don't know. Come on. And you really, and listen, and I mean, nothing, no disrespect against where you're currently at, but the world, the life is long, you're young, like, you know what I mean? Like it's got to be something that's on your mind.
I mean, who knows? I mean, look, I've been approached by, and this was during the time while I was pregnant. It was so weird, Jay, by the way. If I could just say to women watching out there, because especially career women, I was so happy to be pregnant, but I was so afraid because I was like, what's this going to do to my career?
Yeah.
Like, men don't get what that feels like. And I was almost scared to tell people I was pregnant, know? But being pregnant brought me the greatest luck. When speaking about luck, or opened so many more doors. There's my best friend told me in her culture, they say that children bring you the greatest luck. And I'm starting to believe that. So I was so afraid almost of what it would do, but it opened so many doors. So during that time I was pregnant, I was getting the most offers I had ever received in my career. It was the weirdest thing. I was even telling Matt, my husband, who you all guys will know by now, like, I feel like this is nuts. Like where are all these people coming from? Like besides Stansberry, I had like 3 other offers, and then I had some private investors saying, why don't you start your own brand?
Yep.
Like whatever, Daniela.com or whatever.
Why didn't you do that? I'm curious.
Because at the time,
probably because of your personal life situation, right?
Yeah, it was really that. Like again, if I wasn't pregnant, I probably would have. But at that time, I needed the benefits for the kids.
Sure.
I was just like, I'm willing to take a change, but like to be that radical and start,
makes sense.
Who knows? But look, it's definitely been brought up, and who knows? Who knows?
I think we know. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Bitcoin, right? Because you had Michael Saylor on, which I thought was fantastic. You had a debate with Frank and Michael. I mean, you've done a phenomenal job in intertwining these two worlds. They're so closely related. I think I have the club, I should say, on Clubhouse called Digital Gold, right? So I call it Digital Gold. There's a book named Digital Gold. You're obviously a gold bug, or you certainly talk to that market. And before you got into it, you like you said, I didn't know anything about gold. Then you learned about it. You dove in. So when did you first learn about Bitcoin on your journey? What year was that? And who introduced you to it, by the way?
I gotta dig up that video because I don't remember his name. But it was at Freedom Fest, which is Mark Skousen's conference in Vegas. I want to say like the first year it came out. And I remember I was doing a segment on it and thinking, what is this?
Roughly what year was that, Daniela?
2014. I don't think I ever interviewed that guy ever again, but I should dig him up and see where the heck he was. But he was telling me, you need to get into this. And I was like, okay, this is nonsense. Like, this is just fact.
It's everybody's first impression.
And I was like, only gold. So I was definitely close to him. That's why I say my hat's off to people like Max.
100%. Yeah. A lot of respect. Yeah.
How the hell did he know? He understood the concept.
You know what blows my mind, Daniela? This is what's weird. Not only did he figure it out, right, early on, he put in a sizable amount, obviously, because look where he's at. But what was interesting in the face of everybody, the narrative of Bitcoin isn't the current narrative back then. It wasn't the store of value narrative. So
That's
Yeah. If you
right.
listen to his earlier interviews and stuff, he wasn't talking about it the same way.
Well, that's why he's a genius.
Yes.
He's honestly a genius. Because, and I say to anyone who saw or understood Bitcoin back then, because I had a lot of friends that, become millionaires because
Yeah.
they got into it early. It's like, you know what? Hats off to you guys, because I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I think I was too close to get it. And that was
Yep.
a lesson, like
Be open-minded.
I could have had the Cambodian media empire by now, Jay. Yeah, that was around that moment. And I mean, what was it at? Like $3 or whatever. Can you imagine? I would have been like, I'll take all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, kudos to people who saw that. But
What do you think is the most compelling characteristics of Bitcoin to you now with your understanding that you have of it?
so I love the freedom that Bitcoin provides, and in a sense, that's kind of the same characteristics of why I love gold.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, Bitcoin's easier to travel with. I get all that, but that if I want to send money to my family in Rome right now, I can. And I just love that, and I absolutely think it's here to stay. It's proven itself.
Yep.
I'm not saying as a store of value per se, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I don't think anyone, I know there's talk of what happens if government. I don't think you can stop.
No, it's decentralized. It could affect the price dramatically. There's no question about that. They ban it, it's going down. There's no question.
The Fed is, the debt ceiling, inflation challenge.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so fed up of it all.
It's
like,
crazy.
And it's like, let's
What
just
happened
live
to this country?
and like, I don't want my life and my money decided by a group of politicians in Washington.
That's
so
right.
I've just become like grumpy.
I just looked the other day. More than what is it? More than 60% of the congressmen are over the age of 65. It's like, what is happening?
Like, why are they deciding for us? Like, and the change will come. With the millennials, they don't want to be represented by that.
No. Would you ask your grandfather which social media platform you should use?
Absolutely not. Very good point. Would I ask him life advice? Like, yeah, but exactly. No. So I definitely think the change will come. Like, I don't know what a Federal Reserve will look like 20, 30 years from now. I don't know.
That's a good point.
It's going to be really interesting times, but it's changing, and it's changing fast.
You had Michael Saylor on, right? And I want to read something that he said in your interview. I thought it was interesting because by the way, he's probably the most articulate. I know you have Max Kaiser, but I got to say, Max, he's a little crazy too, right? He was like the rookie of the year last year. It's like,
I think I've said this in a clubhouse that in one of my interviews with Michael, I don't remember which one, I'm wearing a white turtleneck.
Okay.
If anyone wants to fact check it, you actually see me, like the wheels are spinning in my head because he said something. And I was like, wow, that was really where I was like, maybe I need to have more exposure to Bitcoin here.
Yeah.
But he makes a case for Bitcoin like nobody.
That nobody does. That's right.
He was sent from I don't know what to be the Jesus of Bitcoin, really.
He's a genius. I mean, come on.
He's extremely bright. I mean, and he sees something that a lot of people are not seeing. So yeah, he's brilliant.
So let me read this. He said, if you're an engineer, you look at technology solution to a problem. There are a lot of non-technology solutions to monetary expansion. Gold is a 5,000-year-old non-technology solution, and now Bitcoin is the technology solution. I had 10 years experience that I can look back on, and I can see what all the Bitcoiners have done for the last decade. And I had to make a guess. Quote, is the rest of the world rational in going to look for a technology solution for their problems? And he says, I don't think it's an irrational thing to bet on the technology in the modern era. So that's what Bitcoin is to me. It's a great monetary technology. And then in the interview, you didn't respond to it. You asked him the next question. You said it's very interesting. And then what is your response to that? Because I'm curious because like you said, he gives these ahas when you listen to him and you're like, I didn't even think of it that way. Because he puts words together. It's interesting. It's like, this is the technology solution for monetary expansion, whereas gold is a non-technology solution, he's saying.
I don't invest in gold because I think it's going to replace the current monetary system.
Right.
Bitcoin has the characteristics greater than gold, probably because of the technological aspect, because of its speed of evolution adoption, that it could. I can't say for certain if it will. I don't know. I can't answer that question. Michael Saylor obviously makes a case like it has to. It's the only solution. It's going to save mankind. I don't know if I'm on that boat yet.
Yeah.
But do I think that something drastically has to change to our current monetary system? Absolutely. Do I think there's huge distrust in fiat? Absolutely. I think there's going to be a big revolution and change, evolution with this new generation who doesn't want fiat anymore. They have distrust in the banks. They don't want to have cash dying in the bank. So something will change. I don't know what that looks like yet.
I'm gonna read something else here because his words are like, I just love this guy. So he says, I think gold served as a store of value because it was hard to produce, he said, and every wealthy person on the planet agreed that gold was the principal fundamental money. The gold standard, if you will, he says. This all makes sense until humanity invents something better. Horses, wooden ships, swords, bows and arrows, brick, you remember this, right? Brick walls. They all made sense until we had airplanes, electricity, modern technology, telephones, and the like. So Bitcoin, you could think of as the social network combined with money. And nowadays, he calls it the monetary network, right? If everyone on the planet agreed to put all their money in a digital network, the Bitcoin network that is, and they sell their gold, you would have something that has all the benefits of gold and none of the liabilities of gold. And that's what's happening right now before our eyes. Bitcoin is a digital gold. And when someone comes along with something better than the 5,000-year-old technology, it replaces it. Why is it better? Because it's pure monetary property. It's in cyberspace. It has no weight. Therefore, it can move at the lightest speed. Has no jurisdiction. Gold has to go in a vault in Manhattan or London or some bank that has counterparty risk and some government that could control it. He's like, I can't move $1 billion of gold with my head in a few seconds. He's like, from one side of the planet to the other side of the planet. So long as you have mass and locale, the properties are going to potentially be impaired. If you have $100 million and you bought land in California, the governor of California has some power over the land. The government can impair the asset. By the way, they did this with the elimination of SALT deduction in the United States, right? I mean, that hurt values a little bit. If you put the gold in a bank, the government can impair the value of that asset. The governor or the mayor can impair the asset. The laws of physics can impair the asset. I can't wiggle my nose, he said, and move gold 1 million miles away in a split second. The laws of physics control me from doing that. With Bitcoin, the government can't impair the asset so easily. It can to some extent, though. That's why I said so easily. It's very choice of words here. The laws of physics don't impair that, and software engineering enhances it. So if I'm looking for a way to pass monetary money, because you were saying as a new parent, this is why you asked this, I believe, 30 years into the future, if I want to give it to my kids, I want to make sure it doesn't get impaired, right? So he says he chooses this. And then you responded with absolutely all those are valid points in regards to Bitcoin, but in regards to the returns, absolutely in terms of returns, because it's killing it, right? Bitcoin's returns, there's no comparison to gold, right? But you said, we also don't see 30% correction. So it seems like you were mostly concerned about the volatility, which is not going away anytime soon, right? The short term. This is a time preference issue, right? High time preference versus low time preference. Have you gotten there on the volatility? Are you comfortable with the volatility yet?
Yeah, I'm probably more comfortable with the volatility than I was at that point in that.
And that was like about 7-8 months ago, I think. That was the interview. It was earlier in the year.
Yeah, I think I've learned to accept that it's just part of the DNA. And
it sucks, but yeah.
I consider myself a student of Bitcoin, and I love learning more and more. There's so many layers. Like for me, gold is easy. Like I get it.
It is. Yeah.
Maybe it's complicated to others, but to me, it's like I've said this before. I am one with gold. Like I understand the ebbs and flows. Okay, I do not panic investing in gold. Bitcoin was new to me, right? And I was like, oh, so the volatility did scare me. I would say, I totally get it now. I get the volatility. I understand how it's part of the DNA.
Yeah.
And just like you could correct 30%, when people say, well, you could also get to 100,000, 150,000 by year end, that makes sense to me as well.
And also, if it doesn't, it just may happen in the future, but exactly.
And that's a great quote from Michael. I think, he's so articulate and poetic when he talks about Bitcoin. I think the only flaw in that point is that when he says, if everyone were to get into Bitcoin, the problem is you're not going to see that. We're seeing the resistance from governments, so that's the other factor is like, I don't think they're going to be able to necessarily stop it. There's like loopholes. But what happens if there's a serious crackdown on Bitcoin and other cryptos, right? We've seen China. Who's next? What's next?
I say this all the time to people. I'm like, can adoption be slowed dramatically for some period of time? Yes. But inevitably it won't go away. And then eventually those old people in Congress go away and the new people take over.
So I think that maybe it will take a change because, Ray Dalio said Bitcoin, if it starts gaining steam again, regulators are just not going to allow it. But maybe you're right. Maybe these regulators won't. But what happens when millennials get into power that fully understand Bitcoin? then maybe it's not.
And this kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is Janet Yellen, right? So she's now talking, and the White House on their website last week put it up there. They're talking about taxing unrealized gains as income. Where do you stand on that? I can't imagine you're for that, but where do you stand on this?
I'm absolutely not for it.
Who's for this other than them people?
They all need to just go away. Just go away.
It's ridiculous.
That's all I'm going to say on it. I'm just so fed up. It's like, you work so hard for your money, and then the tax man cometh on all fronts. It's like, there's nowhere to hide. It's frustrating. It's annoying. Just go away.
Could you imagine the audits you'd have to go through, be subject to? Like, it's crazy.
No.
Wealthy individuals are going to want liquid assets. They're not going to want to hold on to illiquid assets if this happens.
No.
I'm with you. No.
Tired of all these, your Fed chair, then your Treasury Secretary. It's like, can we get new people in, or?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's just the same script. I feel like, I was doing an interview today, and I feel like it's the exact same thing I did like 5 years ago when we were talking about debt ceiling. Are we going to have a shutdown? It's like, no, we're not. Nothing changes. It's been Groundhog Day since was in power.
If you have a real debt shutdown, I mean, come on. They eventually have to put the money printer on to stop that.
Nothing changes.
Yeah.
So that's where Bitcoin is refreshing, and I welcome it.
Did you see what they said about the Roth IRAs, what they've been talking about there? So in a Roth IRA, they want to now cap that at $5 million and tax anything above that. And I got to say, I personally took a traditional IRA. We ran a company, and my wife and I had this thing called a SEP account, Simplified Employer Pension Plan, right? So we maximized this for like 8 years combined and put it into the S&P and let it grow. And then I've more recently, over the last year or so, started moving into GBTC, right? So Bitcoin, which has unbelievable growth, as you know, right? Over a 4 or 5 year period. And so like to do that conversion, you have the opportunity. Do you take that amount? I'm not going to say the amount, but you take that amount. Do you pay the taxes out of your personal checking account that's already been taxed, by the way, right? Or do you use the funds that are there? Well, in this case, I took my personal money out to keep that, so let it compound, to let it keep growing. I just want to say something too. Like I did that, right? But what about individuals that are, 30 years old, they saved up a few $100,000, they have a good job. If you have like a $500,000 in an IRA and you're going to let it sit there for 25 years with a 12% CAGR, you're going to be at like $8.5 million, and so you're going to be subject to taxes too. So like they're shifting the narrative. What are your thoughts on these politicians that are now shifting the goalpost at halftime? The game's not even over, right? It's unbelievable.
I think it's just frustrating, when AOC showed up with the tax the rich dress. So I just think we're living in a
class
world where
warfare.
You're penalized for being successful, and I get all like give back to those who need. Yes, okay, but you're penalized for being successful. We keep having to try and pivot or find ways to save and protect the wealth that you've worked so hard for, and I think that just makes the case greater for assets like gold, like silver, like Bitcoin, like whatever crypto you want to be in.
That's right.
Right? Like, hold some cash, but cash is just going to be a slow death for your money. We're just going to find more ways to put your money to work and try and save it from the hands of government. It's like a rat race for me. That's how I see it.
There's no end in sight. Yeah. One more thing you said in that interview with Michael, well, he said in an interview, he said, what's driving the Bitcoin market is institutions, and institutions are bringing billions and billions of dollars to Bitcoin because they want to store value against monetary inflation. But Anthony Scaramucci, friend of mine, was just on Bloomberg the other day and said institutions are not there when asked. He goes, anybody who's telling you there's institutional adoption in this space is not being totally honest, because they're saying something I'm not saying. Now, to be clear, these are 8 months apart, these two statements. So he's not speaking about Saylor here.
I'm surprised he said that now.
Yes. Yeah. He just said that. He's like, yeah, I'm not seeing it. He's like, in any meaningful way is what he's saying. Right now, I think also clearly Saylor's comments were pre ESG, China FUD, kind of would put a hiccup into growth, I think. You probably would have seen a lot of institutional money going in, but in the wake of all that, they probably got a little skittish. So they're probably onboarding and getting ready with NYDIG and others. And I think they may have pulled back a little bit. Maybe that's what Anthony's talking about. Just curious, like you talk to a lot of really interesting, people on Wall Street, investors and such. What is the feedback that you're hearing about institutional money going to Bitcoin?
Look, it's really interesting because I'm hearing mixed things, but I would say more that Bitcoin is taking them. It's more via Gould that they're moving out of gold and going into Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt.
had the head of commodities at Wells Fargo, saying that he's seeing outflows out of gold into Bitcoin.
Okay.
That more and more of their clients, want exposure to Bitcoin or whatever. So I'm surprised that Scaramucci said that. I mean, I'm actually having him on my show so soon.
Ask him.
Ask him because
Make sure you reference me.
yeah, I would think. Look, do I think it's a tidal wave? No, I think Wall Street's still a bit like hesitant when it comes to what I call alternative assets. But I feel they're almost like they have to adapt or die mentality. So I would be more in the camp that Bitcoin is taking a big chunk.
I would love to watch that show. So when you do that, just ask him what he meant by that comment. I'll send you the article too. Yeah.
I mean, do I think it's killing gold? No.
No.
But do I think it's taking some momentum away from gold? Absolutely. Or taking a place in Wall Street? Absolutely.
Just in terms of your allocation of Bitcoin, have you been increasing your allocation as your conviction has been increasing over the years?
I'm pretty steady with Bitcoin. So
wait, I'm just curious. Steady in terms of dollar cost averaging or just maintaining your position?
So we like full disclosure, like every week we buy, like, and I say as a family, we add to Bitcoin.
Okay.
And Ethereum, and we take advantage of the dips. So whenever there were those dips, that's where I say I've become more comfortable with the volatility, where I'm just like, yay, it's down, let's get some,
Yeah.
So I just, my husband manages that, but we just take advantage of those dips. So yeah, definitely we have increased our exposure to the crypto space, but obviously the precious metals are still there. I've added to gold recently as well. It's not at the levels I like buying at, but I have added to gold recently. I'd be looking at adding some silver. Again, not at levels I like buying. I like buying my silver under 15. But my husband's smiling. Why are you smiling? But yeah, it's an interesting time. So I just, I always say just take advantage of the dip if you're looking to add.
I gotta ask you this last question because I'm sitting here listening to this, and I know you have like probably the preeminent voice in Bitcoin between Max and Michael. One of the interviews, he said, when you talked about diversification, he's like, if you diversified in technology, I'm going off memory here, if you diversified in technology, you could have bought Amazon, you could have bought a bunch of retailers, and your overall investment over the next 20 years would have been terrible. Had you just bought Amazon, you would have crushed it, right? Like if you see something that's a clear winner, you buy the winner, right? In fact, Amazon's really interesting. Since the IPO, Amazon declined, talk about volatility, 6% over 200 times. This I got from Anthony, by the way. He came on my show, and I love this stat. It's fallen 15% over 100 times, 20% pullbacks 16 times in the 20-year period, and the pullback more than 40% half of those times. And in 2008, it dropped 64%. In 2000, it dropped 94%. But if you put $1,000 on Amazon in the IPO and never touched it, you'd have $2 million today.
So you're saying, why am I not 100% Bitcoin?
Why do you diversify? Why do you buy Ethereum? That's what I'm asking.
No, I'm a believer in diversification as opposed to putting all your eggs in one basket. If you want to put all your eggs in one basket, go for it. But I like to hedge, honestly. And I like being diversified. I like sleeping well at night, and I feel good. Like, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, I have some Ethereum, we have gold, silver. I'm good. We're covered.
You don't care that in the future, if you're wrong about the others with a lower return, because you'll feel better that, what if I was wrong about the best return? What if that was?
Okay. I'd rather be yeah, I'm willing to roll the dice there.
I got you. I just find it so interesting because you have access, unlike anybody else on the planet, to all these people, and they still haven't convinced you fully. So that's on Michael and Max. They haven't fully orange pilled you yet.
I mean, look, I get it. I'm like half orange pill, but like, remember my background, I'm a gold person, this is, so
I get the gold thing for you. It's not for me, but I get it because it's a process. I get it. The Ethereum thing I don't get, but I get the gold one.
More than gold, it's like investing in what I feel comfortable in. So, and this is not like a groundbreaking notion, but I tell people, like, who come to me and say, should I buy an ounce of gold? And who are new to the space, I'm like, why do you want to buy it? Like, think of like, what are the reasons for owning it? Don't just do it for the sake of it because it's your neighbor's buying it. I also have platinum and palladium, by the way. And I just want to say my Ethereum is very small compared to my Bitcoin. All the Bitcoin do not come and cyber hornet me, okay? It's very
exactly. Leave her alone, guys.
Thank you for watching.
You have probably gotten a lot of people in gold into Bitcoin. Let's be honest.
I like both. I don't see why you can't own both. Own both. You know, and if you just want to own Bitcoin and you're full belief, you know, like whatever makes you happy, whatever you feel comfortable with, you know. So for me, it's like, how could I not be in gold? I fully understand it. I feel comfortable with it. I feel good investing in it, and I'll always invest in gold. And I like Bitcoin, you know, and I am in Bitcoin. That's already a step for me, guys. I've increased my exposure to Bitcoin.
Can we say hi to Matt, your husband? Because I see he's in your corner. Can we just say hi to Matt?
You put me on the spot.
You're the biggest supporter, right?
He is the biggest. He's always in the corner.
I love it, though. I absolutely love it. It's like my wife. She's my biggest supporter. I love it.
You can't get around.
I
He's
can't
blocked
get
by
back.
the lights.
Oh, the lights and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, but he's there, and it's just so funny because he hears most of the interviews, so he absorbs as much as I do. But I am in a very fortunate position to have access to such incredible minds.
Absolutely.
But that's why I hope to share these people with the public. You know, so thank you for all you do, Jay.
Thank you, Daniela, for coming on the show. Everybody, Daniela Cambone, editor at large at Stansberry Research. Thanks, Daniela.
Thank you, Jay.
Awesome.